Welcome to the Average Joe Jiu-Jitsu podcast, episode 21, Steve Austin. I'm sitting here today with Steve Austin, who is a second-degree black belt and a Philadelphia native and the owner and operator of Scion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Steve, thank you for coming on on my podcast today to speak with me.
Hey, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you bringing me on as a guest.
Thanks. And just so we talked about this off air a little bit, but just so everybody understands or knows, I originally found you on YouTube on a IBJJ Globetrotters video where you were teaching a knee on belly course, and I thought it was really good. And so I was like, oh, this guy's he's really good. So I started watching some of your stuff, and that's how I found out about you. And then when I started doing the podcast, I was looking for people to interview, obviously, and your name popped back into my memory. And I found you on Instagram, and we hooked up and decided and agreed to do this interview. And in the course of preparing for the interview, I read about your backstory, and I thought it was very powerful. And I thought that was the biggest or most important thing we could get out of this conversation today was basically all the things you went through, how jiu-jitsu helped you in your life, and where you are today. And that's really what I wanted to discuss today, if you're good with that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for following me. Thanks for being supportive of the jiu-jitsu community. That video I did with the Globetrotters, they're one of my favorite camps to teach at. They put on a really good environment for everybody to come and share jiu-jitsu, and it's great for the community, whether you're in the competition or hobbyist, professional. It's a really nice atmosphere, and they do a great job of promoting the instructors, especially for things like this. It really opens the doors for a lot of us to interlink and connect with a lot of people out there. So, thanks for being a fan of both of those organizations there too.
No, you're welcome. They're really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So where would you like to start?
Let's just start at the beginning. I think,
So for me, my beginning, it's very complicated. I have a very, I was born with a lot of medical issues. So we can start right there. And that's kind of where everything happened. I was born with a hip disease called Legg Perthes. And the way that it works is, your hip deteriorates, and then you have to keep it in place, and then it kind of regenerates over time. I was very young when I got it. So that caused a lot of other complications, such as being misdiagnosed by a doctor. And I was labeled as spina bifida. So they were kind of looking at the wrong thing. And it just caused a ripple effect of different surgeries and different elements over the years. And it kind of was, started there with everything. I went through probably 9 major surgeries before I was 25, most of them from like 3, 7. And then in my teenage years, I had a lot. And, with being sick as a child, it's tough. Like when I was in the braces, you could see everything, but when I wasn't in the braces, you had no idea what I was going through. And in later years, where we kind of talked about with depression, that's where it played like a huge role with me as a teenager. When you're a kid, you kind of just go along with it. I had my moments where I was sad, but it really affected me mentally more as a teenager, and got me into some bad situations where I was exposed to very hard drugs at ages, because I was, having these surgeries. So, I'm coming out having to take very heavy, pain pills. And, it exposed me to a drug addiction in my teenage years. And I'm very fortunate enough that I came out of those years with just the memories of them.
Right.
And it was dark. It's tough, because when you're born with these things, you don't really understand why. And everybody has different answers, whether you're religious or not. Like some people were like, oh, God works in mysterious ways. It's very hard to hear that when you're in the midst of that as a kid. It is odd how, as I got older, it is funny how the story works itself out. And jiu-jitsu played a huge role in my sanity throughout my years. It became a form of like combative therapy for me. And when we mentioned therapy earlier, like I've gone through many years of talking to different people over the different, and when you're explaining like, hey, okay, so I've gone through these major surgeries, I had a doctor mess me up, and now I have to be physically catheterized every day the rest of my life,
right?
The surgery that this guy did, the first surgery, when they botched it, that was one of the ripple effects of that surgery. I have to be self-cath every time I go to the bathroom, pretty much for the rest of my life because of this guy's, wrongdoing. And that had a heavy effect on me as I got older, because it was like, why do I have to suffer as a child and go through this when it was somebody else's mistakes?
Right.
And that's a hard question to ask, and it's a hard question to answer as well. And I think over the years I found different answers that fit my emotions at those times, and I made sense out of it. Some of it was healthy, some of it was unhealthy.
Right.
But either way, it's all led me to right now. So when I go back, I don't think I would change anything yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and for people who are listening, to give you like some kind of context, like even the braces, like you were putting braces that put your hips at a 45-degree angle, and you were in them for 23 hours a day, except to bathe and so forth.
Yeah.
You weren't allowed to walk.
No, I had to I couldn't walk regularly.
Yeah.
So I would hobble around, I would crawl. It was a lot of jiu-jitsu movements. So
yeah.
Really, I remember my first jiu-jitsu class, and they're showing all these hip escapes, these crawling across the mat, these sit-throughs. And I just kind of chuckled to myself, this is ridiculous. It was it just gave me the analogy of when a baseball player swinging with a weight on the bat and then take it off to go out there. And it was man, this is one of those, this is what you guys do. This is how I got around as a kid. So definitely made it a little bit easier, but it was very difficult getting around being in what was called an A-frame brace. And basically I had, my hips were spread, and I think it was an 80-degree angle actually. And they were stuck like that 23 hours of the day. And that caused my spine to grow slightly different. So I don't have a very natural curved spine. It looks more like sticks put together, and causes a lot of back pain. After a couple, I can only sit still for a few minutes at a time before I have to kind of just adjust and keep myself lubed up and not get tight. There's days jiu-jitsu does great for my body, and then I feel man, I need a day off.
Yeah. Can you hear an echo or anything when I speak?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
good. So it's just me. All right, I'll deal with it. So yeah, and then you were also, because of that situation, you experienced a lot of bullying as a child. Yeah.
Growing up in the 90s, it was very different than it is now with bullying and a lot of cyber and online stuff. It was very physical, and it was also a different time where there was no handicap and disabilities weren't as catered to as they are now. We have a more open mind to the way kids are when you see certain things. There's still bullying, and there's still things like that, but it was you picked on the easy targets more, I think. And I was exposed to that. So I got to self-defense very early on, because I wasn't just being verbally bullied. I was having people trying to physically bully me, and I naturally just always wanted to keep myself safe. So defending myself early on got me into martial arts, being more fragile, I felt, as a kid, because when I was very young, I didn't develop correct. Being in these braces, muscles and bones did not develop as normal. So when I got them off, if I fell, if I ran into something too hard, I would fracture my shin, I would fracture the bone, I would break something. And if it was my right leg, I had nerve damage, so I wouldn't even know. And I walked on a fractured tibia for a little bit, and to the point where doctors actually thought my mom was abusing me, because they were like, "Why didn't you bring him in?" And she's like, he wasn't complaining about it. So there's pros and cons to that, because jiu-jitsu, it's great. I don't feel pain in that leg this way I do, but I've broken things on that foot and not known, and now it's more deformed than what it should have been. So, it's tough, but we make do what we got.
Yeah. Well, you have a really good attitude about it. I mean, I know a lot of people wouldn't be as courageous about it. So I commend you for that.
It's taken me a lot of different perspectives. It's taken me a lot of different psychoanalyzing and soul searching, however you want to put it, to get to this point of view, because I lived a very negative way for a long time, and was very angry about my situation. I was, just self-destructive toward it, inside, external. I didn't have purpose.
Right.
you look at it more as as something that's like holding you down versus helping you. I know realistically I have limitations. I test those boundaries, and I've learned what works and what doesn't, and what I have to be careful with. But it was all more or less like when I changed my perspective to just being grateful of what I have, and I've seen people who have worse. So that really kind of, I'm just really thankful for what I'm able to get up and do today, because there's days that I remember where I couldn't get out of bed. I was physically bound to that bed because of whatever surgery or whatever was going on at the time. So mornings that I can just get out of bed and walk on my own, it's just another grateful day at the video game, man. Amazing. That's the thing, is like, it's all perspective. You think, it's like you feel an ailment or a pain or something, and you complain about it or whatever, or it makes you feel like, I can't do this today, or I can't do that today. But you hear stories like that and you're like, what the hell am I complaining about? I have nothing to complain about. So you started martial arts, I believe, with Tae Kwon Do. Is that correct? Yeah. You started around like 14.
Yeah, you were able to finally convince your mom to let you do it. That sounds like a familiar story to me too. Like I started karate, I did Shotokan karate first for about a decade. But I started in junior high, and it took like my stepdad to like get my mom to let me do it. And then at first it was like, oh, you can do it for the summer, and then you got to stop. And then it turned into 10 years. And, but she, after I started doing it, then she saw the value in it. But up until then, she was like, for whatever reason, she was really against it. And I've done martial arts, pretty much all my life now at that point, since then. So it's always been something that's been very, important to me, or a big part of who I am. But so you started Tae Kwon Do, and then you went into Kempo.
Yeah.
And the Kempo actually led to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the path that kind of went down.
Could you elaborate on the Kempo to Jiu-Jitsu aspect?
Sure. I was about 19 when I had my son. So that was a very pinnacle change for me in a lot of stuff in my life, because up until then, I really didn't have anything going for myself. And I was, like I said, there was a lot of depression, a lot of self-destruction. When my kid was born, it definitely was like, hey man, you grew up without a dad. Let's break this cycle. Let's kind of, be the person you wanted to have around for them. And I'm still working on that. I still struggle, and I still have my, my failures and my mistakes, and I try to just not make them again. But I got back into some form of martial arts because I was like going through a rough split with my son's mom. And I needed a hobby, and I wanted something to just get my stress out. Gym was great. I loved working out, but it never, there's something about martial arts that, again, has this freedom that takes you to other places. And I found Kempo, and I was doing it. It was okay. And the guy I was training Kempo with was like kind of secretly training jiu-jitsu, because the Kempo system that they were involved in didn't like outside training, as some gyms and some martial arts. So it was like, you had to keep it kind of secret. So then I got exposed to jiu-jitsu, and it was just more realistic for me on what I was looking for. Being in bully situations and actual fights, I'm going to be honest, like there's certain things that I'm not going to do in a fight. Right. Like you train in other martial arts. And it was getting to a point where the stuff that they were showing in Kempo was like, hey, I'm not going to do this. Like, it's not how the fight's going to happen. There was too many questions, too many loopholes. And jiu-jitsu was just kind of like bringing that all together and exposed it. And it was just like, man, this is what it's really like to actually be in a physical altercation and you're not striking somebody.
Right.
The true resistance, the true energy, the true aggression, being in that panic mode of the actual live cat fight. It was more realistic for what I was looking for. So it really kind of like sucked me away from the Kempo.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of started doing jiu-jitsu full time. Was doing a little bit of MMA just to get the experience. But with my medical limitations, I would never be able to go pro. Right. So I it for the experience, for the coaching, for, you know, my own thrill.
Mhm.
And, you know, yeah, it's now 20 years later, here I am still doing jiu-jitsu.
Nice. Yeah, I started jiu-jitsu when I was 41 or 42. Yeah, and
Props
my
to you, man, because it's tough for a lot of people to start something in those ages.
yeah, I did, like I said, I did karate for 10 years, through from junior high into, like, I guess would have been my middle 20s. And then I did about 15 or 18 years. Yeah, about 18 years of Japanese jiu-jitsu, like,
Mhm.
you know, like real traditional samurai, like Sengoku era, type martial arts. And then I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And in between that, I also, or on the sporadically throughout my life, I did like bodybuilding. I did powerlifting for a while in my early 40s. So I had done a lot of stuff and did a pretty good number on my body as far as beating myself up. But I mean, overall, I'm 50 now, and overall, I feel pretty good. I mean, I have little ailments here and there, but
You know, it's funny. I've seen over the years, people, no matter what you're doing in your life, you're going to have your aches and pains, and you're going to have your things that start falling apart as you get older. I at least want to be in shape and look somewhat decent and healthy while at this place.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen guys in their 40s just let themselves go, and it's just like, all right, man, like 50s is going to be a lot worse than what you think.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm about to turn 40, so having medical issues, growing up with medical issues, I always felt like my body was 10, 15 years older, just aches and pains. So I try to always keep that in mind. Man, some days I've overdone it, and like I'm there with the ice packs on my knee, back's killing me. But it's like it's gonna happen regardless whether I train or not. So
well, it's probably worse if you didn't. And
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, like even today, we were talking about aches and pains. Like today, I woke up and once in a while my back bothers me. Like my sciatic, and it just aches, and it sometimes is a little stiff, and it's hard for me to bend over in the morning. And I felt that way today, but it's like it'll go away in a couple hours, and I'll be all right. And tomorrow morning when I go back and train, I probably won't even notice it. So it's but the point I was making was about MMA is that when I started when I was 41, my first coach was a pro MMA fighter. He was just still actively fighting at the time, and it really did interest me. But I was like, man, if I'd started this in my 20s, I probably would have done it. I probably would have done a couple fights. But I was just like, at that point in my life, I didn't have the time, and I was too old. I was like, I'm in my 40s, I should be going and kicked in the head, and I don't have the time to train all the different disciplines right now and do kickboxing and everything else to go along with it and wrestling. So I didn't do it. But I'm just saying that I understand the interest or the desire to do that. I mean, like when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I did see that, and I was like, yeah, that looks like it would have been fun. And had things been different, I would have done it sooner. But then again, when I was 25, it really wasn't around. I think the Lion's Den was here in San Jose, really, but that was about it. You really couldn't find it. It really wasn't around. It was really down in LA with
the other thing too is like I'm right outside the Philadelphia area. So I think it was like up until like 15 years ago, the Gaming Commission didn't allow certain things to happen in Pennsylvania. You weren't allowed to do any jiu-jitsu tournaments or any MMA events because they didn't. I think it was the chokes they didn't allow.
Right.
But you could have boxing, you could have wrestling, you could have kickboxing. It was just you couldn't have any sports events with chokes. So when that changed, MMA in the Philadelphia and just Pennsylvania area, it's like that's when Tiger Schulman switched their branding over. That's when a lot of these like mom and pop MMA gyms opened up, and I think it brought a lot of cool attention to the scene, and you had those that were true fighters and true warriors that are still around in that area today.
Nice. So when you stopped, or when you decided not to do MMA for those reasons, what was the next step?
Really more or less just training full time, and I think that's when I actually started teaching. Like I was a purple belt. So I was teaching, beginner classes, and purple belt's very interesting time frame because you're very eager for knowledge. You got a point now where you've developed your core foundation of understanding jiu-jitsu. So you're like trying to absorb as many like powers and different areas as possible. Right. And you're eager to share because as you're sharing, you're realizing that, oh man, this is giving me a better understanding every time I explain it. Every time somebody asks me a question, I have to sit there and really dissect what we're showing.
Mhm.
And then when you're also seeing people to practice what you're showing them really had an impact. So that's where kind of my interest started going more towards teaching at that point. And then as I went into the later belts of jiu-jitsu with my brown belt, I was teaching full-time then. And then of course, like when I got my black belt, it was more or less like it became my career. So, you know, it was nice to be able to be a part of a gym that had that environment that was like, hey, okay, let's start bringing up the next generation of guys and trying to make the progression a little bit easier for that generation, that wave coming in, because it was difficult for us. There was a lot of people in our area that you had to travel up to New York, you had to travel to Jersey, you had to travel to all these other areas to get like black belt training.
Right.
Now it's a lot different. There are black belts every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's great
Yeah.
because you have this cesspool of information to just pick from.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't make it an hour and a half down the city, I can go 20 minutes up the road.
Right.
So that's real nice.
Right. That's nice. Did you ever train with Steve Maxwell in Philadelphia?
I didn't. So he was gone out of Philly
Okay.
by the time I really got more involved in jiu-jitsu.
Mhm.
I did have a chance to meet him and train with him actually in Sardinia,
Mhm.
right outside of Italy at a camp.
Nice.
So that was kind of funny that, you know, we're Philly guys that got to meet halfway around the world somewhere,
Right.
because of jiu-jitsu. So that was a lot of fun. He was a very old school guy, very you know, very knowledgeable.
Mhm. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'd like to actually talk to him one day. That'd be fun.
Yeah, he's a fun guy.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. What was my next thought? I'm sorry. So then you opened Scion JiuJitsu.
Yeah, I went out on my own a couple years ago. You know, I had a business partner at first, and I wanted different directions on where the jiu-jitsu program was going to go. So I went out, I started Scion, and I was renting space in like a couple gyms, and then went real big, got a warehouse. It was like, you know, 4,000 square feet of like gym area. It was great, and then it was just too much. It was very cavernous, so I downsized, and you know, been doing great so far. You know, of course, this last year and a half has been chaos.
Yeah. How did the pandemic hit you?
It hit hard.
Mhm.
You know, it was, you know, we probably lost at first like 80% of our students. And I think most jiu-jitsu gyms and gyms in general went through something like this, where you lost a huge chunk of members, but then there was this core solid group of members and team that no matter what, we're going to continue to keep training. And became like the heartbeat of the facilities.
Right.
And I think a lot of gyms and jiu-jitsu academies had that. You know, it's nice, and you see it building up, and you know, it's every time you feel like you're on this crazy roller coaster, because every time something gets mentioned of some new thing or new that, you see a ripple effect.
Right.
It's very interesting to see the ripple effect on the businesses that it's having now. Down the road, like our billing software company was affected by it, so because you know, they're mostly clients or gyms. So the way all the billing system and that everything had to be changed over last year, so that was, you know, that hurt at one point too.
Right.
So it's been you know, a constant battle, but I don't know, man. Jiu-jitsu kind of like prepared me for this, at least. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get to train throughout the pandemic. Our gym was closed down, and there were people like finding other places to train. I wasn't sure where they were. And I had a pretty serious case of hypochondria going on like throughout most of my life. And so being a bit of a hypochondriac was pretty tough during a pandemic for me at first. And it caused me a lot of just a lot of stress and anxiety and you know, stuff with my family and so forth. But now I've actually gotten to a point where I got on the other side of all that through this pandemic, where I was like, now I'm like, you know, all I can do is do the best I can, just say something.
I think this last year has really helped a lot of people grow in ways that I personally didn't think I had to grow.
Right.
Things I thought I had in check helped because
Mhm.
I was actually one of the last gyms to close, and it was really I only closed because nobody was coming in for like that week, and then our township shut us down.
Mhm.
And with the first lockdown, I was going into the gym like April 2020, like doing videos, but that
Mhm.
was such a weird month.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by February, by I mean not February, by May, like I couldn't stay in the house anymore. I had to start
Mhm.
training. So we kind of like opened up speakeasy style.
Mhm.
I was just like, hey, all right, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, everybody, park at the building next door, come
Right.
in.
Right.
And I don't know, I've been training religiously like that since then. So
Mhm.
there really was no downtime for me.
Mhm.
I didn't open up publicly right
Mhm.
away
Mhm.
to like new members, but
Mhm.
then I did softly,
Mhm.
and I just wasn't very vocal about it. And
Mhm.
I just politely said, like, hey, look, anybody who wants to train, come in. Anybody who's not comfortable with this, we'll be here when you're ready.
Right. Right.
And I'm sorry if you don't agree with it.
Mhm.
Uh, my business was in jeopardy. I feel like if
Mhm.
I didn't do that, I
Mhm.
wouldn't be here. And even now, like I'm still battling to keep the business running because it's not,
Right.
it hasn't bounced back. And it's like, yeah, we got these business loans and you got all that, but yeah, you get forgiveness on some of them, but some you still have to pay back. So it's like
Yeah.
we're all opening up with more debt and less clients. And it's
Mhm.
like, all right, and you guys talking about lockdowns again? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I
no
got
thanks.
it. I hope that doesn't happen again. I mean, it's like there's got to be. I mean, what do we do? We lock down every time there's a variant. It's like, give me a break. You know?
Look, I personally just the only reason I watch the news is just to see what people are going to argue about next.
Hmm.
I don't put any emotion into it anymore. I personally, like I said, I've done a lot of self-analyzing over this
Hmm.
last year and
Hmm.
fixed some things that I needed to work on.
Hmm.
Um, and I think a lot of us have. And
Hmm.
it's you have to try to look at it like that. And
Hmm.
that's how I always try to find a positive in a situation.
Hmm.
Like, yes, you're dealing with it. Let's acknowledge, like, man, this really sucks. This put a
Hmm.
lot of stress on anxiety on all
Hmm.
of us. It's put a lot of stress on relationships, a lot
Hmm.
of division,
Hmm.
but just let it go, man.
Yeah.
Just enjoy being alive, love those that are around you,
Hmm.
and turn off the news if it affects you that way.
Absolutely. I don't watch it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I get through life now. I just don't pay attention to the news. I don't watch the news. I don't like look at, when I turn on the internet, when I go on the internet, I don't start looking at the news stories and all the stuff the press puts out there. If I want information, I go to the CDC website and I read that. And other than that, I just, I try to eat a really good diet. I try to exercise. I take a bunch of vitamins and minerals. I try to get my sleep. I just try to take care of myself. And that's really what it comes down to, is keeping your immune system strong.
Well, see, and that's where it's like the jiu-jitsu community, like we're exposed to a lot, and I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
scientist. I'm not going to claim any of this. I just
Mm-hmm.
know that my personal experience over the years, I'm a healthy athlete. I eat really clean. My cheat meals like getting in mac and cheese,
Mm-hmm.
with salad,
Mm-hmm.
so I tried to stay as healthy as I could. I stayed, away from certain things, certain
Mm-hmm.
foods. But everybody's going to have their hangups with this.
Yeah.
And it like I said, the only reason I really watched the news with all that was just
Mm-hmm.
to kind of see what people are going to argue about next, so I can kind of just
Yeah. Be
skirt
prepared for it.
around that
Yeah.
and like, all right, man, you guys are going to argue about that. I'm going to go over here and do my thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to live my life. I'm going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys want to join? Come on over.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I
Keep
totally
it
get
going
it.
over there. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So what does Scion mean?
Utopia.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it's also like, it's got a lot of different biblical meaning,
Mm-hmm.
Scion.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was looking it up, I wanted to find something that represented like that utopia for me. And looking through a thesaurus that popped up, and I was specifically trying to find a word that started with S,
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of had the logo beforehand and with the belt in mind,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and my wife helped design it. So
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to find something that also a 4-letter word for branding purposes, because with the gear at the gym, and I got a couple little t-shirt designs that we've done and different things like
Mm-hmm.
that. The whole purpose was for branding, make it a bit easier. But for me, the mats are my like sanctuary.
Mhm.
and it's my Utopia. So
Mhm.
when I was able to name the gym that, it's just kind of an extra, like little fit.
That's awesome. No, that actually fits really well. I think for a lot of people, it probably fits. I think a lot of us, then when we do jujitsu, we have all these other things in our lives, but it seems it's pretty cool the fact that you can go in there and turn all that off and you don't think about any of it while you're training.
No, and that's why like I try to explain that to like people that have never trained before, and I use the term combative therapy because when you go in there, whether you're a new guy or an experienced person, the moment you go out there, you're now focusing on a whole new distraction. It's taking you away from your outside world. Um, there's not many things that can really cut off our stimulation and keep our attention nowadays. We're so like all
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
place with stimulation, and to have something really captivate you for an hour to an hour and a half to where nothing of the outside world is interfering. It's there's something very peaceful about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So the person who inspired me to do this podcast is Ryan Ford. And I started that after I found the Grappling Central podcast. Somebody I knew through my first jiu-jitsu gym was on the podcast, and that's how I found out about it. And I started listening to it. Then I listened to your interview as well. And during your interview, you had talked about at the time that I think you were a first degree and you were looking for an affiliation, or you had not really looking, but you just really weren't affiliated. And I thought your attitude about the whole thing was really cool. That it was sort of like, I'm just going to do my thing and what I want to do. And if there's somebody that fits well with, my mindset, then I might consider it, kind of thing. Are you still in that same situation, or are you now affiliated with somebody?
No, so for again, we'll give a little bit of backstory. When I left my business partner, I kind of left the affiliation. And I was just like kind of nomad, and it was nice because I was training with like so many different people from different backgrounds and different gyms. I felt like there was no politics of the jiu-jitsu community in my life at that time. If I wanted to go train with somebody from this side of the family or that side of the family, there was no feud. But what happened was that time went by real quick, and then at first 3 went by, so I never got promoted. Then second degree started coming up, and it was like, all right, I gotta figure something out, like just it'll be nice to get those. And it was like, all right, that's like, it's a big chunk of time that's gone by already. I was doing a lot of training with the guys from Balance, so Phil and his brother Rick Gracie. I was training a lot with those guys, and I made an affiliation with them over the years. So I got promoted from second degree from Phil.
Nice.
Getting ready for third degree coming up.
Nice.
Yeah, time flies, man. And
Yeah.
It's cool how fast it goes by.
It does. It goes by really fast. It's like, yeah, I'm purple. I'm a purple belt now. I got it in February 2019, and I'm just doing my thing. But it's like, even with that, it feels like it's already been like 19, 20, 21, almost 3 years. Yeah. So it just flies by.
And it's one of those things, like I tell beginners, like when they come in and like you see if they have this like aspiration, like, oh, I want to make it to black belt. It's like, all right, cool. Well, realistically, just don't quit for 10 years.
Yeah, or longer.
Yeah. But the average person, like if you're training like 4 times a week, 10 years is a good time frame to think about that. And I just tell them, like, just don't quit. In 10 years, you're going to be there. It's that 10 years are going to go by no matter what. Where do you want to say, and where do you want to be in those 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've been training for 8 years, and like I said, I'm a purple belt now. My goal obviously is to get my black belt and beyond. I want to do jiu-jitsu as long as I possibly can, for the rest of my life if possible. But it's like one of those things too, where it's like I have that goal to get to my brown belt, but then at the same time, it's like it's sort of out of my control. So I find that I have to just concentrate on the training itself and just trying to improve and trying to push the other idea of the rank sometimes out of my head, so that it doesn't become like a negative thing in my psyche about it. And it's hard for me to explain what I'm saying, but it's like I have this goal, but then again, it's like I also know that it's not something that I can like put a timestamp on. I can't put a deadline on it. So it's one of those things where I guess you have to just try to do the best you can and improve as much as possible, and hopefully somebody else notices it and go from there. But
Well, you have to look at that is so like what I did was when I first started jujitsu, I said the same thing, like, yeah, I want to make it the black belt.
mhm,
You make this very like long-term life goal because
mhm,
it's a good, let's say 10 to 15 years that
mhm,
you're going to take to get that goal.
mhm, mhm,
But then you have to realistically break it down and chunk it into realistic little goals.
mhm,
And you start off at white belt, your first goal, don't quit, make it to
mhm,
that first stride, then you
mhm,
make it to blue belt. And it's like, all right, you got that first step out of the way.
mhm,
And then like when people make it to purple belt, that's such like an important jump because it's really solidifying like your hard work. You're really seeing like the reactions your game has developed, your personality has developed.
mhm,
And it becomes this like these superpowers almost that you have and you start to cultivate. Um, and then you get to brown belt. Brown
mhm,
belt's going to be a lot of fun for you because
mhm,
that's the bridge between that and then that life goal that you made of
mhm,
like, oh my God, like I'm not there, but that's realistically the next thing if I
mhm.
don't stop.
Right.
And that's kind of like where I was at with that. When I got brown belt,
Mhm,
I was very ecstatic, but it was also like it was this new fire under me because I was like,
mhm.
man, I'm the next step is that goal that I made over a decade ago.
Right. Right.
So let's run harder now. Let's go. Let's push.
Right.
And it was I don't know. I just kind of have that mentality where if I have like when I train and when I like to compete and the way I like to do things is like I want to be able to be pushing harder at the end of the race versus than the beginning of the race.
Mhm, mhm.
Like I want to be that I want to be able to keep that pace constantly going. And that's what it was when I saw that realistic step. It was like, man, the next one, if you don't quit now,
Mhm.
you reach that goal you made.
Right.
And it's very, very powerful and impactful for you as a person to
Mhm.
achieve something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that is my goal right now. I mean, is to get my brown belt, and I've been trying to train as hard as possible as I possibly can. And like I said, I'm 50, and it's like sometimes I feel it. Sometimes most of the time I don't. At least I feel like I don't. Like I've all of people in my gym bring it up, like when we're talking about um uh like the outcome of matches, whatever, a particular day or something, and they'll say like, well, this, you're 20 years older than this guy or that guy, and I'm like, well, but I don't feel it. So to me, it's like I'm like, no, that's not an excuse for me. I don't care. I don't want to sit on my rest on my laurels about my age. It's like I just want to get better, and so I'm just. And I feel like I am. I mean, I think if you try to improve like one thing a day or just try to get something better or whatever, you're always improving. And I think it's keeping that positive mindset that you're trying to do something positive every day. And when negative things happen, so what? I mean, I heard a great saying from Rich, who's the head instructor of my academy. He said, even monkeys fall out of trees.
Yeah.
So I repeat that in my head when I feel like I'm having a bad day. I'm like, don't worry about it. Even monkeys fall out of trees. You'll be fine. Tomorrow's another day. And I train like almost every day. So I train 5-6 days a week. So I try to do the best I can. And but that is my goal right now, is get my brown belt. And but then again, I also don't want it just to be about rank. I really want to just get better, as a martial artist, as a person. And I think that, all those things are important, but yes, I do still have that goal. And some people tell you, well, belts aren't important to me or this or that. And those are also sometimes the same people who like to compete a lot. And I personally don't compete a lot. But my thing is like, well, if rank's not important to you as a competitor, then why are you competing? Because if you don't get more rank, then you don't get better opposition. So you don't really test yourself. So yet rank has to be important, I think, to a competitor. I think otherwise you become a sandbagger almost.
Yeah. It's also easy for us to say, like, don't think about the rank, especially if we've already done that.
Right.
You can forget. I
No,
don't forget
absolutely.
like chasing that. The
Yeah.
main thing though is, are you enjoying the moment and the experience that you're having
Mm-hmm.
while you're doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's including in the chase for the
Mm-hmm.
next step.
Nine,
Um,
nine, yeah, 9 times out of 10, yes. Like
and
99% of the
that's
time, yeah.
really what it is. And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, sometimes we get fixated on like, especially like training for a match, like
Mm-hmm.
a competition.
Mm-hmm.
You put all this training in, you put all this time in, you did all this hard work, and say it's a super fight. You go out, you get tapped down the first 20 seconds. That was definitely not the outcome that you want.
Right.
None of us are happy.
Right.
I don't care who, well, what did we learn? I learned how much I hate that.
Right.
So nobody likes to be in that situation. But we forget sometimes, like, all right, our process of the journey, did you do everything that you could? How hard did you work? Did you put the time in? And just because we didn't get the results that we were looking for, did we do what we could? At least that's how I look at it. Okay, what do I need to adjust next time around? Let's make that a calculation. All right, let's move on and go with it.
Yeah.
Works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I mean, I don't know. For me, I've always been like that, where whether I competed a lot in white and blue belt, and then the pandemic hit right after. I got my purple belt, and then I tried to do a couple of tournaments, but I couldn't get a bracket. There's just, like, because of my age, I think there's just not as many 50-year-old purple belts, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and I think right now, as people are getting more comfortable going back to training, I'm seeing already the competitions are picking back up again. You know, doing them at the beginning of everything. You know, they were very scarce, and you know, you didn't have a whole lot of people and a whole lot of competitors. And I think as everybody gets a little more comfortable and back into, you know, the world, you'll see it start picking back up. But yeah, you may have to drop down to the adult.
Yeah,
you know?
but my point was that I have competed a lot, but for me, it's like, I rarely enjoy, well, I do enjoy the day, but obviously when you win, it's great. You always enjoy that, right? But I'm saying, but for the most time, the tournament itself that day, it's like, it's anxious to me. It's a long day, you know, it's a lot of sitting around, you know, it's just it's not a whole lot of fun most of the time. But the process is what drives me. It's like, it's like the preparation. Even in bodybuilding, I did the San Jose bodybuilding show. It was like, the show itself wasn't that much fun, but the preparation, you know, the workouts, the cardio, all that stuff was what kept me going. And that's what I really enjoyed. I've always been that way. I've always enjoyed the process as opposed to the outcome as much.
Well, and I think that's going to say a lot about what you get out of life. You know, like if you're only focused about the outcome, I think you're going to get so lost and miss the moments that are like, hey, be present in the moment. You know, I personally like to try to live more like that than focusing on just the outcomes.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
When they go wrong, I'm not as disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, more realistic. I like to hope for the best and prepare for the worst.
Exactly. And all you can do is just try to do your best the day of the event or whatever you're doing, you know?
Yeah, and it's a lot, like you said, there's an anxiety to competing. It's not easy to go out there to a competition, and it's taken me years to be able to kind of like really work on that and harness it so that I can actually enjoy that moment just as much as I enjoyed the preparation, because that's such a huge role in it and such a big part. Like all that preparation, that would be like you're preparing so much for a wedding, and then the wedding comes and you're like, I don't want to, why am I doing this? I think, you know, being able to enjoy yourself the moments before you walk out on the mat, you know, like that's just as important as the preparation. Because there's times where I remember my first fight to win, you know, you're standing backstage and I didn't compete in a while, and now you're going out on stage and you're like, your heart is pounding. You're like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack. And then you go out and it was like a blur. Like you're like, man, like what happened? And you don't even like, you don't have that memory the way you want it.
Right.
And now it's great. Like, you know, I did the ADCC trials not too long ago. Didn't go my way, but before I walked out there, I was in the moment. I felt great. I was able to watch what was going on and really take in everything that was happening around me and enjoy it.
Wow.
Just as much as I enjoyed the training, the diet, all that kind of stuff. I forgot how much I really like being in that. I just wish this was 20 years ago and I had a much better vehicle to access it.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think the same thing a lot of times, just about training in general. You know, like if I had been the 25-year-old self I was back then, you know, what would I be doing with jiu-jitsu now? I mean, I probably weighed like 215 back then, you know.
And you'd probably be competing a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I was much more. Yeah, I mean, I was going into law enforcement, and I was pretty big and a lot stronger than I am now. And not that I'm weak, but a lot stronger than I am now. And just it would have been a different situation sometimes. But then again, I feel like I do okay against younger guys too. So I mean, so yeah, some guys crush me because they're just savages, but but a lot who don't. And so I take it with what for what it is. I feel like I could be doing a lot worse. So I feel like I gotta pat myself on the back more often than I do.
So I try to tell my guys, like, don't, like, it's tough, like when you're in a group atmosphere, you're trying to compare yourself to a bunch of people that are progressing and growing as eager as you are. And I try to tell everybody, like, when you're having those like plateau moments where you're trying to see, okay, where's my progress really at? I always tell everybody, like, take you now and fight you the day before you did jujitsu. How's that match going to happen?
Oh my God, yeah.
Most people, that's their reaction.
Yeah.
And that's usually like after a month of training. And then I try to tell everybody, all right, now as you get a little bit older, like for me, how could I go against 6 months ago, Steve? Like, how would that match go? Oh, well, that dude was working out. That dude's cardio was a lot better. I don't know. I think he would take you in a match. And then I personally deal well with that. So then now it's like I start training a little bit more just to beat myself from 6 months ago.
Right.
But I just find that being a little bit more healthy for me. I'm trying to gauge my progress with my timeline versus all these other guys in the gym that are growing at a pace as well. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
It's like, especially like if you got a peer that you're like kind of foe in the gym where you're able to go back and forth, where it's like we're going to catch each other equal amount of times.
Right.
It's tough to gauge your progress against that guy, because you both are growing together. Maybe some do it a little bit faster, but most of the time it's together as a team. So that's why I'd say, look at your timeline. How would you do against you the day before you started jiu-jitsu? And then how would you do against you 6 months ago?
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of how I like to gauge it.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. And I was just thinking, I was thinking of a term or whatever when you said that. I was thinking, a new term, academy frenemy.
Yeah.
So yeah. I have, there are those guys, you train with them and they're like your friends and they're really cool. You're really cool with each other, but it's like a back and forth. It's like, when do you get them? Most of the times they get you. And it's like, when you do get them, it feels good. And
that's like your peers. So like I tell everybody, it's like a totem pole. You got your guys that are below you that you can be able to help teach. You're going to be able to really play your game. Like, you learn a new move, you can go practice on them because your timing's better, you have more information. If you make a mistake, it's not going to cost you as much as it would with that guy, the other one that you have as your peer, because if I make one mistake with this guy, they're going to capitalize.
Right.
So those are the same guys that are like right at the same level with you. And then you have your people above you. Those are the ones that are going to teach you, humble you, and just iron sharpens iron, man. They're going to help you fight to get better. But I think you need those 3 training partners in really anything you do in life, but specifically in jiu-jitsu, because it's just going to help you as an all-around fighter.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that's, again, like you said, we're all trying to just be better than what we were yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't disagree with any of that. It makes sense. And it's actually the situation I'm in now, which is nice. I really like where I am, and it's a good fit. So speaking of strength and conditioning and cardio, what have you done in the past, or what do you currently do as far as those aspects of your jiu-jitsu training?
So I'm very big with body weight workouts.
Okay.
I'm big on push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. Kind of like my daily routine every morning. I was calling them prison workouts over COVID.
Nice.
I was in the corner doing push-ups, sit-ups, and squats in my office at home. Like, even though I could go to the gym, I was getting a little bit of backlash from the township being in there. Yeah, I got my business license threatened.
Oh.
And it was just me in there, but they were being a little, I don't know, a little pain at first.
Right.
So I just respected it, stayed home. So I was just doing my normal routine, throw a movie on, push-ups, sit-ups, and squats. But I like lifting weight. I'm not big on heavy weight. I prefer lower weight, more reps kind of workout. I try to stay active with that, a couple of workouts throughout the week. My cardio, I'm usually either running or bike. So I do like a mile here and like, every other day kind of thing. Having bad knees, bad back, it definitely puts a little bit of toll on that.
Right.
So I prefer treadmill only, barefoot,
Hmm.
versus running street, running
Yeah,
anything like that.
I get that. When I have run on a treadmill in the past, I did notice the difference. I don't like running on the street. I won't do it. It's just
Hurts
too
my back.
painful.
It
Yeah, it
kills my lower
hurts.
back. Like
Yeah.
I'll do like, and it's weird because I could do a mile on a treadmill like no problem,
Hmm. Hmm.
trucking, and then
Hmm.
a mile on the street, I feel like I don't know, like the earth is pulling me behind. Like,
Yeah,
dang.
I feel the same way. I actually, I was very lucky. My brother-in-law, for whatever, my brother-in-law's always been a really avid bicyclist, and he had an accident just this last year, and he had an injury, and he had to have surgery, and he's okay now, and he's back on his bike, like in the house, like stationary wise,
Hmm.
but his regular bicycle. But he bought I guess it's a spin bike
Right.
during that era to try to get started again, but he hated it, so he gave it to me. It's like a brand new, like $500 spin bike, and he gave it to me. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. But it's in the garage. And so I use that. And I find that to be a lot nicer to my body than,
It is.
running. Yeah.
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 Especially like with my lower back, with my hip problems, like I have a ton of lower back problems.
Hmm.
So with the treadmill, as long as I'm running barefoot,
Hmm.
it doesn't bother me.
Hmm.
If I wear shoes, man, it kills my knees.
Hmm.
Um, but the bike I find very, very fun.
Hmm.
Just nice, relaxing. Like I'll throw a sweatsuit on, just
Hmm.
do a nice half hour
Hmm.
and try to do that. And I try to keep, I learned over COVID that I had to take care of my body a little bit better.
Hmm.
It was nice. I think most of the jiu-jitsu guys could relate that after about 2 weeks of not training, we all were like, oh, my body
Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah.
and you realize, okay, we're overtraining a little bit if
Hmm.
that's where our relief is at.
Hmm.
And that was something that was really nice, was like I instead of, because I teach a lot, I teach sometimes like 4 classes a day.
Hmm.
I learned like, look, I'm not sparring every one of those classes.
Hmm.
I had a bad habit where I would, and I
Hmm.
got 2-3 days where I would do that. Like, oh, I haven't seen so and so in a week. Hey, you want to roll? All right, cool, let's go.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then by like Thursday, like I need a day just to rest, and it was
Right.
too much.
Hmm.
So I learned that I like to spread out my workouts, the days that I'm sparring. I only spar certain days. I only run certain days. I try to really make sure I get them in throughout the week the way I should.
Yeah.
And it's done wonders for my training, because now I feel like I'm putting a good 80 to 90% into
Hmm.
my training session versus being like on an empty tank trying to just be like, all right, hey, be toughen this out, let's go.
Hmm.
And it's tough to listen to that inner battle of like, hey, listen to your gut feeling, take the night off, don't
Hmm.
train, or is this my inner bitch telling me shut up? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
this constant battle back and forth on where do we want to go with this.
I do the same thing. And I do it where I try to get in like 2 hard days a week where I really do a lot of rolls like 2 days a week and go at it. And then the other days I try to do more drilling and more like
Yeah.
I try to do light rolling as much as possible. If I'm in a situation where I feel like I shouldn't be rolling that day and I can't get a light roll in, I just don't.
Yeah.
I'll just drill and go. But then I heard, but I always have this thing in the back of my head. I have Hardra Gracie's voice in the back of my head every time I just drill. He's like,
Mhm.
well, if you're just drilling, you're not training. If
Yeah.
you're gonna, drilling's not training. Once you get the motion down, you're not really, you're done. You got to go test it. You're not training. So on the days when I feel like I'm just gonna drill, it's like it's really hard not to go
Yeah.
and roll too because of that. I have that little voice in my head. I can hear him. I think it was on one of Ryan's interviews too. Um, but yeah, I do the same thing where I'll train, 5-6 days a week, and I really have to monitor how hard I go, or I'm
Yeah.
gonna burn out.
Yeah, and I tell like beginners that I'm like, hey, be careful, you don't overdo that.
Mm.
And as I'm getting older, especially with like, I have to be careful with certain injuries and
Mm.
certain problems. So it's
Mm.
like I try to really monitor that. And when I
Mm.
saw a healthier outcome, especially like I said, when we first started opening back up, we were only
Mm.
meeting like 2-3 days a week.
Mm.
So I feel like I haven't been on that schedule since I started jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Like, and that was great because like I was coming in and I would have like 5 rounds right off the bat, and they were beautiful rolls.
Mm.
Super technical,
Mm.
moving throughout them,
Mm.
felt great. And then it was out and I was like, man, my body doesn't hurt. Like,
Mm.
all right. Because like I noticed like if I teach the morning class and then I spar, When I go back to teach the evening classes, by the last class, I'm just so done. I'm burnt.
Right.
I'm just ready to go home now.
Right. Right.
My movement, and that's when I feel like I'm at a higher risk of getting injured. It's like, all right, I want to make sure that I'm not going to get hurt and I can come back tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even when I switched over academies and I was doing, because I train like early mornings. I used to train like 11 o'clock.
I prefer training in the morning.
Yeah, I do too, actually now, and it's nice that I'm able to do it now. And I usually train at 6:30, like at least 3 days a week. I do 6:30.
I don't like training that early.
That's early.
That's too early for me. I got a lot of guys who like to do private lessons and some students that like, I can't. I'm getting up at the time. I need more time to move around. I like the 10 a.m. class. No,
I do too. I did my first academy where I was for 7 years. I did 11 o'clock 5 days a week because my office was around the corner. That's how I actually found that place and got started. And I did that. And then now I switched over where I'm doing, I do mornings 3 days a week at 6:30 a.m. And then I'll do 2 days at like 12:30 and then Saturday 7:30. So, but yeah, but when I wasn't doing the Tuesdays and Thursdays, when I first went there, when I was just doing 3 to 4 days a week, I actually felt the difference where I was like, oh, I actually don't hurt like I used to. And it doesn't feel, but then I got to the point I started training again every day again, because even for me, it's a therapeutic thing, the mental, and I think that's what,
man.
Yeah. And I think you spoke about this before, and you can do it much better than I can, but how like the serotonin, et cetera, how these hormones in our bodies that we get from the training, that's what we really get addicted to or
thrive from. Yeah. That was something like, as I've always been in search of like, what is it about jiu-jitsu that connects us so much? Like it's unlike other sports. Like when you meet other jiu-jitsu people, the only thing I've ever seen very similar to like the camaraderie is the military. The way military guys are with each other is like got that bond. And it's honestly, we all know the struggles of what somebody goes through with jiu-jitsu. So whether you're a brand new white belt or you're a black belt, you know the struggles of what you're doing, and it's a special breed of people that do this. So it has this connection, but there's more to it. Like we all get super addicted to jiu-jitsu. And learning a little bit about myself and like, all right, what makes us happy inside, and understanding like, all right, well, we need oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins to have the basic chemical balance of happiness. Well, most people get endorphins from working out, and that's great, and that's you can get that, but there's still a weight. You know what it's like when you a weightlifting workout is not the same as a jiu-jitsu workout.
No.
So where do we break it down on what changed? What makes such the difference? Now you bring in other people. That's the community. That's where we're getting these other chemicals that you cannot get by yourself. Your oxytocin and serotonin. You're getting that physical contact. And all right, let's face it, what was one of the things that was stripped from us over this last year? Contact. So how many people went 6, 8, a year without getting a hug from somebody?
Right.
You're restricted from that oxytocin of being in there. I'm out there hugging somebody every day. Like I'm having that physical contact, and I'm getting that rush from that, and that pure happiness. And that's where I said, like, with jiu-jitsu, you're getting a nice healthy dose of all these things that are coming from setting goals, working out, getting the partner, being a good drilling partner so somebody else can pick up the technique, seeing your coach recognize what's going on, seeing all those little things. Like it creates an environment to nurture those basic needs in the human. And seeing that, when everybody tried to take it away from me over this last year, I was like, look, I can't let it go. Like, sorry, like this is keeping sanity for a lot of us.
I get it. Yeah. I mean, I struggled that year when I didn't train. It was bad. It was like I really missed it.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, I struggled really hard, and I was lifting weights like I have a bunch of stuff in my garage. So I had weights during the pandemic, like a lot of people didn't have anything. And so I was grateful in the fact that I had purchased all that stuff prior, like over the years, and I had it. So I used it and I lifted a lot. And
same.
Oh yeah, I lifted like crazy, and I got a lot of my strength back and so forth over the pandemic. But but it wasn't the same. It was like I was lifting
No,
weights.
so
And,
and that's what I'm saying is with the weightlifting, you're getting endorphins and
Mhm.
dopamine.
Yeah.
They're like that's it. Serotonin and oxytocin. You
Mhm.
have to be able to have that with other people in the environment.
Right. And
So, it was nice that you stayed healthy, you stayed
Mhm.
working out,
Mhm.
but it mentally messes with us when we're
Mhm.
stripped of those things.
Yeah. No wonder so many people are addicted to social media too.
Well, you're getting
Yeah.
that dopamine from
Yeah.
there. That's an
Mhm.
unhealthy source. Like most people don't
Mhm.
realize, like if you just make a to-do list and go do it and then check it off, you're fulfilling that need.
Right.
But we also have identity crises. A lot of people live on social media
Mhm.
as like, virtual avatars of a different person.
Mhm.
Does your social media line up with who you are in real life?
Right.
A lot of people it doesn't.
No.
It's their persona. It's
Mhm.
their escape from who they are.
Mhm.
Like I don't know. I don't want there really to be any difference between who I am in real life and who I am on social media.
Right.
And I definitely want to make sure those things are in balance
Mhm.
and and put in check if they're not.
Right.
You know,
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
social media is a dark world.
It is. It
You
is.
know,
Yeah.
it's a dark dimension that I still don't know if we have the knowledge and the capability of navigating correctly.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to get there. It just seems to be a, never ending, uh, uh, increasing part of our world, where
Yeah.
it just takes up so much time, and it has such an effect on people. And I've seen it have an effect on, people close to me, and, in a negative way. And so I try to keep it in check too. And
Yeah.
if I feel like I'm doing that, then I try to step away from it. Um, so you mentioned your wife is a tattoo artist, correct? Has she done any of the tattoos you have?
She's done a few things on me. I feel like I'm like a walking poster boy for her.
Uh-huh.
She's also covered up a lot of bad tattoos from me
Right.
too. So
Right. Yeah. I actually I draw, and I drew my daughter a tattoo. She just turned 18 on last Thursday. And I took her that day. She had an appointment all set up with somebody I know through another jiu-jitsu friend, through another
yeah.
friend. And he has his own shop here in San Jose, and we went over there and he put it on. But I was just wondering, because I'm thinking of getting some more done. So I was just curious about the things you had and stuff, because I know you had a lot of
No, I do not have any jiu-jitsu tattoos.
them.
I am covered, but nothing jiu-jitsu related.
Nice.
I don't know. There was nothing that I really found that was like, all right, I want to put this on me to represent that stage of me.
Right. Right.
I have Japanese themed tattoos.
Mhm.
I also have like a Polynesian leg sleeve that's like
Nice.
dedicated toward like martial arts and the
Mhm.
warrior concept.
Mhm.
But that was it. Like I don't even want any of the students to get the logo. Like I have
Yeah. Yeah.
like there's some out there. I'm not knocking anybody that does that.
Mhm.
You.
Mhm.
I personally don't want anybody to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. She got I drew her it's my birth flower,
Okay.
and we changed one of the flowers on it to be her mother's, or my wife's birth flowers. So it's basically our birth flowers on her ankle. So, and she's
Yeah.
doing some other stuff, like with other family members, like her grandmothers and stuff like that. But yeah.
I
So
do tell everybody anytime you're looking to get a tattoo, always plan on seeing a vision of what you would add to it.
yeah.
Tattoos are addictive, and everybody tries to have the sentimental like connections to your
Mhm.
first tattoo. It's got
Mhm.
to have this meaning, that
Mhm.
meaning,
Mhm.
and then like 10 tattoos later, you're like, that looks cool, throw it there.
Right.
Yeah. So I tell everybody just plan on adding on, whether you think you are or not.
Right. I mean, I want to get some done, and I might get. I thought about getting like something jujitsu related, just because it means a lot to me, like just jujitsu itself. So I thought about it,
Yeah.
but I thought about getting, like, I was thinking about a half sleeve with some stuff, and some things that mean things to me, like my family. But I have to really think about it. It's like you said, you have to really think about it. You have to really
Yeah.
like
You
know
put a
you
lot
want
of
it.
thought into the first couple, and
Mhm.
then like after that, you're just like,
Start slapping
that's
them on.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, throw it
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah. Well, I have one on this shoulder that I don't like, and I've actually thought about doing a cover up on it. So
Yeah, I've been lasered and
mhm.
redone,
Mhm.
and I tell everybody just really, really do your homework, find a good artist.
Mhm.
Don't be stressed out if they're 8 months booked in advance. That's usually a good thing.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I have an opportunity in January to do the first one, but so I'm going to try to jump on it. But like the one I got here, it's not a bad tattoo. It's what I wanted and it looks good, but it represents something I did when I was, in my 20, something I was into when I was in my 20, I was
You
24.
moved on from that phase of your life.
Yeah. And I just don't like, I look back on that phase of my life and I'm sort of like, that was even a stupid thing to do. So why the hell I want that on my body? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't need to be haunted by it anymore that way.
yeah.
Man,
So I
I
feel
know
like
that. I know
covering it
that.
up. Yeah. I feel like covering it up. So one thing I was reading your background and I thought was pretty cool is what was on your bio on your website. You said throughout the years, Steve has built up a list of high profile clients such as Menard James Kennan, who's the lead singer of Tool, or Perfect Circle, and Pacifier. Gail Sharon, drummer for Marilyn Manson, and Hugh Fitzgerald, who's the head BJJ instructor of 8711 Action Design. So how did you meet these music performers?
Look, sometimes I question how it all worked out that way too. It's weird how you imagine certain things and then it happens. With training with Maynard, that was all thanks to Henry Akins. I was training with Henry and he's done a lot of work with him, and I got the chance to meet him, train with him, and it was really like just, I don't know, it was an experience that is it's hard to describe because it's like, all right, here's one of your rock star idols. Cool, you get to do some jiu-jitsu with them.
It's awesome.
Getting a chance to meet Gil, I met him through the guys at 8711 with Hugh. It was like, that's one of the times where social media was actually pretty cool because you connect the same kind of way we did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You find these like-minded people and then you see, hey, I got this connection. Oh, so-and-so. Okay. Hey, and especially with the jiu-jitsu community, everybody is so like welcoming and everybody's more about like collaborating versus like trying to one up somebody. And that's always something that I've loved about the jiu-jitsu community. For the most part, you got your strange birds out there that to themselves.
Yeah.
But most people are very open and want to collaborate, and it's great because you get a chance to meet some really cool people. Going out there, that's something that's a passion of mine and that I would love to kind of get more into would be fight choreography. Being a movie buff, I've always been fans of action movies, so when I see certain fight scenes, it's kind of tough. You become a critic on it. So to be involved in some of those things, to me, that's like a dream job there. So that's something I hope once we kind of calm down with everything, we'll kind of see how that all goes back.
Right. I mean, weren't you involved with those are the guys who did John Wick, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, they did all those guys. So I had a chance to go out there. I got to train with the director. Got to meet him. Got a chance to see some of. I was going out there, and then when they were doing Wick 3, that was really cool because I got to see some of the actors and the main cast, like them and their stunt doubles working, and a chance to see how everything really went down, and it was really cool. Now, with 4, I know protocol with filming and everything has changed over the last year with COVID. Everything is very kind of more close set. So I'm hoping that opens up, back again for me in the future with that.
Right. That'd be awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. Cause it's something like I said, it's a passion of mine and I would really get more involved with. It'd be kind of cool to, watch a movie and be like, all right, hey, that's jiu-jitsu. That was my little creation right there.
I really enjoy movies. I mean, just the whole process of how they're made. And I always thought, man, it'd be really cool to work in an industry to just, behind the scenes of how you make them.
It's something on my bucket list.
I
always wanted to do like in the background, like some jiu-jitsu in a movie or something, and then be able to kind of help, create it. And it's just, I love movies and, I think it's a neat way to tell stories and, what it impacts, but I don't know. We're also into that action movie too, where it's like, it doesn't have to have a great story as long as it got good action. I can enjoy it for what it is. But I really would love to kind of get more into that in the future.
Yeah, that was the movie that always comes to mind when people say something like that is Batman v Superman for me. It was visually, it was awesome. I like that. I was a big fan of all that stuff growing up and still am. And visually it was awesome to see it, but the story was horrible. Just
One that came out a few years ago.
Yeah, the one with the first one Ben Affleck was in.
Yeah,
when he first came out as Batman. Yeah, that was like the story was bad in that film.
I was expecting it to be a lot worse.
Mhm.
I had very, very low expectations of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's not as bad. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So that reminds me, I was reading when I was reading your bio and your background, you were talking about when you were growing up, you used to watch a lot of action movies, and those are the guys that inspired you to move forward into martial arts and what you wanted to become. What was your favorite movie back when you were growing up?
My all-time favorite was Conan.
Okay.
With Schwarzenegger. I was a big Conan the Barbarian buff as a kid. So like that was
same.
Yeah, that was one of my things. And then, I grew up watching like American Ninja and of course, like all the Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee movies over the years. So wanting to get more involved with martial arts was always a passion of mine. And it became like more of a passion because I was a kid who couldn't do those things. So
it froze up.
More?
Yeah, it froze. There you go. It froze up for a second. So yeah, I get that. I mean, I was like, I have 10 years on you or so. Yeah. So I remember the first thing that got me into martial arts was, I don't know if you ever remember it, was a TV show called The Master. And it had Shokasugi in it, and Lee Van Cleef, I think was his name. Okay. He was an older gentleman at the time. He actually had been in some Chuck Norris films in the past and so forth.
Hold
on. All right, back. Let's see.
Yeah, you froze up on me.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get it back. There it is. Now I'm back. Okay. Yeah. You hear it back? Okay. Yep. So yeah, so it was this TV show. It's called The Master. It was about ninjas and stuff, but it had Shokasugi, and it was the first time I ever saw a ninja in my life. I think I was like probably, I don't know, 11 or something. But I was like, what the hell is that? That thing's pretty cool. Those guys are pretty cool. And then I was like, and then I watched all the Shokasugi ninja movies. I probably saw Revenge of the Ninja like 70 times.
You froze up on me again.
Damn. How's that? No, still bad.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hold on. All right. Okay, there you back. Okay. I don't know why but it is about this room. Once in a while it does that. So I probably watched Revenge of the Ninja like 70 times. When I was growing up, and got all into that. And I did enjoy the Arnold Schwarzenegger Conan films when I was younger. I was always a big Conan film. I used to like read a lot of the comics and the books and stuff. My uncle got me on the novels, and I did. Did you see the newer one though with what's
I did. It was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
But it was funny because like I grew up without a dad, so I make the joke all the time that if it wasn't for like these 80s and 90s action heroes, I would have never had any male role models.
Right.
And like growing up, like Rambo, Conan, all these like different ninjas, they were like my role models. So
and I heard you say that before, and that really resonated with me because I was like sort of shocked with myself because I was like, hey, I was in the same position. I didn't. Damn it. Let's see. There he is.
You there?
Sorry.
There you
Sorry.
No, that's cool, man.
So, but yeah, I was in the same position where I didn't have a good relationship with my father either. We had no relationship at all, throughout my childhood, except for some sporadic points. And I was thinking maybe that's why I liked all that stuff when I was growing up too. It was just a male role model. It was somebody, something in my life that gave me that direction, as far as like, what I thought a male should be or something. I don't know. But it did also teach me, like, I think I've always said the one thing I learned from my dad was how not to be a dad. Like in other words, do the opposite of what he did with my own kids. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job.
I think as we get older and the more information we learn about ourselves, the situations and life around us, and the different perspectives that we're able to kind of view life through really, really change things because, I grew up without my dad and I didn't know the whole story. So there was a lot of things that I'm like, I hated my dad at one point. I was like, all right, I knew that same thing like you said, I knew what I didn't want for my kid. And as I got older, I found out that my dad was already married to somebody else, and I was the product of an affair. And then it was like, all right, well, why wasn't he around? All right, well, now you know. And it made a little bit more sense. And honestly, since then, I actually found my dad. And I did one of those DNA tests, found out that I had some siblings. Both my wife and I within a week found out that we had siblings from other that we didn't know. Yeah, it was kind of bizarre. And I was able to actually connect with them. And I met my dad right before he passed away last year. He unfortunately had Alzheimer's, so I'm not really meeting who he was.
Right.
But I got to meet siblings who all adored this guy, and they loved him, and he was an amazing person to them, and a completely different perspective and idea of what I had of this guy.
Right. And
it really changed, and it gave me some kind of like, closure and peace, because I was like, he was a good person. He was affected by his decisions and his things, and I had this perspective that not everybody had of him.
Right.
It definitely changed how I viewed the situation over the year, and how I view my childhood now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, but I'm glad you were able to at least get that closure for yourself. I mean, that's important. Yeah, because I know I haven't had that closure, and so for me, it's like I have a different opinion of, or still of that whole situation. And although I don't let it eat me up anymore, it's still I know it's still there in the back of my head.
I made peace with it before it all happened, which was crazy, because it was like, I had the opportunity, and it was like, all right, he knows I'm out here. If he ever wanted to find me, he could come find me. And I made peace with everything. And it all fell in my hands, and it was weird how it all worked out. And, I'm just fortunate that the story went the way it did.
Right.
It wasn't perfect, and I don't think any of our stories really are perfect. We all have trauma. We all are affected by our past, and we're all affected by things that have happened to us. It gives us our perspectives, but I think sometimes we're emotionally connected to that perspective, and it stops us from having different outlooks.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
He's up again.
Oh, did I? Oh, there you go. Okay. And this thing's freezing a lot today. I don't know why. Must be a lot of people on the internet. So well, that's I don't remember exactly the last thing I said before it froze, but yeah, I'm glad you were able to, come to that conclusion and have that closure for yourself. That's cool. Right.
Yeah. I'm just grateful for the situation that happened.
Yeah.
And it came at the right time in my life, because when I was younger, I don't think I would have been able to accept it and appreciate it the way I was able to.
Absolutely. So let's do a couple of jiu-jitsu easy questions before we close this out. Do you prefer more of a technique or a conceptual approach to jiu-jitsu, where you feel like there's a blend of both?
It's a blend of both, because I think without techniques, there are no concepts. And without concepts, the techniques won't work. Right. So I think they have to be hand in hand. Same thing with I know you mentioned Kroyler Gracie's. It seems very similar to Kit Dale's, where once you have memorized the technique and the steps, now it's all doing it live. That's really the learning at that point. But I still think out mistakes. It's difficult for us to practice those things without doing that. But I personally I think once you get to a certain point in jiu-jitsu, your techniques, it's not that you're getting new ones and that you know everything. I just think that you're seeing hybrids of certain moves that are coming out now versus oh, this is a whole completely new game. Jiu-jitsu is still evolving and constantly coming up with new things, but it all seems just like hybrids of stuff that have already been out there. And now the concepts are what's really making the difference of how that person is able to use those techniques, you know.
Right.
So I think it's difficult for beginners to understand concepts in the beginning, just because they're so focused on trying to memorize the technique and being in there that it could be almost like overloading them with information. And then it's nice that when you show like a purple belt a concept, all of a sudden it's completely game changer. It was like the last piece of the puzzle they needed for that to really, really make sense and work in their favor.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I always really enjoy is like the ability to like in this last month or so, I found a knack for an omoplata that changed like my omoplata itis for the last several years, you know, where it actually made it so I could do it.
All of a sudden, one detail has such a huge impact.
Yeah. Or how, you know, like the standing guard break where you put your knee in their tailbone. Yeah. Like for years, I couldn't do that thing. It's like my hamstrings are pretty tight and I just couldn't get in the right position. And just the other night, I was working with somebody who did it really well and they showed me a little trick or a knack to it and now I can do it. So those are the kind of things I get really excited about. I find.
But why do you, let's break that down. Why do you think that is, that all of a sudden now you can do it?
Besides the trick that I was shown.
Because all right, if you think you would have seen that trick when you first started it, do you think it would have clicked and made as much sense?
No, I don't think so. I think that, you know, I mean, I think it was a combination of what he showed me and also the fact that I understood more now about foot placement, that it had to be closer together, that you could use your knees to push the other, like their hip over in front of your knee.
There's a lot of layering.
Yeah. There's a lot of layers to it.
And that's what I try to explain to students. Like, think about it like math. Like you start out with addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and then you add algebra in. So it's like you can't have those layers without knowing the one previous. So like when you're learning all these things, and it's like, it's funny because I'll teach something and I'll see somebody struggling with it, and then say like 6 months go by and I teach it again, and all of a sudden they're like, there was that one detail, like it makes sense now. And it was like, well, everything that you've done has grown and progressed, and your understanding of, like you said, the foot placement, the little things, your flexibility is also improving. You're relaxing more in the movements. Your energy use in the movements is different now. And you have an all around better education of the material.
Exactly.
So now it clicks a little more.
Right. Oh, it makes a lot of sense. It just but those are the things, I mean, it really gets me excited when I get to those type of positions.
Yeah, 100%.
I want to talk to you about self-defense because I know that you got into jiu-jitsu for self-defense reasons. Yeah. And hold on a second. Somebody's interrupting my podcast.
Don't worry about it.
So you got into jiu-jitsu primarily for self-defense reasons, and I know you did MMA. And so we discussed offline, like on text and so forth, that, I mean, I like competition and I like the sport aspect of jiu-jitsu, but I also like the aspect of doing it for self-defense and as a martial art, etc. What do you feel are if you were going to like break down the differences, like if you were going to say, today we're going to do like self-defense based type of jiu-jitsu, what are the things or the concepts you're really trying to instill?
So I try to explain so say if like I have a new guy coming in, I try to explain to them, like, I personally think there's like 3 types of jiu-jitsu out there. You have your sport jiu-jitsu where there's rules, no striking. And you have your MMA jiu-jitsu. There's striking involved, but there's still rule set. And then you have your street jiu-jitsu where there are no rules, anything goes and anything can happen. Each one of them have a different concept, different philosophy, and different structure of what material you can play with the rule set. With MMA and strikes, I honestly, like, I like to roll like once a week with MMA gloves on and just nice light strikes with people and grapple with that. Nice. It really teaches you the concept of like, hey man, what works and doesn't work when there's strikes involved. I also don't feel like being punched all the time. So that's when it's nice to be able to roll with just a roll kind of feel where I can play this open distance game where I don't have to worry about you knocking my teeth out. But I think as jiu-jitsu guys, you can easily get this false sense of confidence that, yeah, because you're a beast in the gym means that you can be a beast down on the street when this guy's punching you, kicking you, biting you, scratching you. Weapons are involved. So when you have all those elements, things change. Did you freeze up?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you froze on your side, but I can hear you.
All right.
There he is. Okay, yeah, I could hear you. You kept. I heard everything you said.
All right, cool. Yeah. So it's like having that reality check is important for people, because we all train so we don't have to do this outside. But if there comes a time and I do have to engage, I want to know that I understand the rule set of the strikes, you know, and that I can protect myself from that. But that's also for me, like, I personally liked it for that reason. Like, I got into jiu-jitsu because when I first got exposed to it, it was like, man, this is very realistic on the energy exchange in an actual confrontation of when you clinch up. And that was like exhilarating. But you know, with MMA, there's still rules. And then with street jiu-jitsu, like I said, you have no rules. And like, I train law enforcement, and I train military, and I train prison guards. A lot of the prison guards are like, what do you do if this guy tries to bite you? And it's like, that was like something that they have to be aware of with prisoners biting. And it really changes on how you hold, like the basic technique. Anytime somebody like wants to grab the nose, lift the head, I don't like putting my hand anywhere near somebody's mouth. Because of those concepts. If we're outside, I don't want this guy being able to bite me if this is a situation.
Well, I've been bit. I've actually been bit.
Yeah, it's not fun. Yeah,
it sucks.
It sucks. Yeah. I had a kid when growing up that we got into a confrontation. He bit my arm, and it hurt like hell. And you know, people don't think about those kind of things.
Yeah. I was doing loss prevention when I was much younger, and arrested some girl, and it was going, you know, go try to arrest her, and it went bad, and she ended up biting my tricep. You know, back here, I had a scar back here for years. And it was scary. It was like, you know, I was all back when there was, you know, HIV and everything was coming up, and you really didn't know anything about it, and it was freaky, and you know, had to get tests done and the whole thing. Of course, I'm fine, but you know, it's getting bit is not fun.
No, and I think it's like, it's one of those things where everybody should have an understanding of what you're training. So like, if I teach a technique throughout the week, I'll show the basic concepts. So if we're teaching like a De La Riva guard, I'm going to show that. I'm going to show what it is. When we get into the fight based of it, if I'm not going to use that in a fight, I'm going to say, hey, look, this is for the gym only. This is nice for inside. I'm not using this outside anywhere for this reason and this reason. Same thing with like the arm bar from the mount, where everybody takes it. Our back is on the mat. It's a great arm lock for the gym. I personally am never doing that outside. I'm never going to submit somebody like that outside. I do not want my back on the ground where I can't see anything that's happening, and I can't be in control of what this guy is doing. It's a great submission. I'm just not going to use it in that environment. So I try to let the guys understand and know that, like, hey, yeah, you practice these things here, and this is what I'm going to use in this situation. But when it comes to a self-defense situation, there's a certain there's only a few things that I'm hunting in that situation.
Do you feel in self-defense that you're more likely to use a constriction or a choke as opposed to a limb break? Or
yeah, so it's one of those things. Well, what are you doing? Are you trying to gain compliance? Are you dealing with somebody who's intoxicated? Because that's the thing, is if you have somebody who's intoxicated on something, you break their elbow, they continue to fight. Like, it didn't do anything. So the only way for me to be safe now is to put you unconscious. But you also have to be aware of that. Like, are you watching how they fall? Are you watching when they go out? Like, are you letting go? Are you controlling their descent? You know, I think it's a little more humane to do something like that than snap some guy's arm. You know, doing security over the years, you're using those like pain compliance techniques to gain compliance, but it also can escalate the situation pretty fast. And it's, you know, now you snap this guy's wrist when you didn't have to, and what? So, I don't know. I find that if I'm not outside getting into confrontations, I don't have to worry about it. but that's not always the case. Like I had people yelling at me and trying to fight me in our local convenience stores because I wasn't wearing masks.
Mhm.
You know, and it was just like, all right, like, am I gonna have to defend myself while I'm trying to get a sandwich right now?
Right.
You know, and this guy's trying to scream at me.
Right.
Hey, man.
Yeah, that whole thing, man, that caused all kinds of problems. People are just like just very they have very strong opinions on one side or the other, and
Well,
tends to
you know, I keep people call me
Mm,
conspiracy theorists, whatever. I feel like we're in a social experiment.
mm,
You watch it, the way everything was happening and the way people treated each other, and everybody was stripped of their rights and locked down, and
mhm.
then give certain people a little bit of authority, and they just ran with it and
Right.
screaming at people and yelling at people, and
Mhm,
everybody's a shame hero. And
mhm.
it's like, man, like think we're all going to look back 10 years from now and really question a lot of what happened and how we behaved.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. There was a lot of that came out of that experience that was negative. Um,
Again, I think we've all really shed some negative traits over this last year too.
mhm, mhm.
Some of us still have time to, a lot to work on, and
Yeah.
I know I'm nowhere near complete working on me.
Mhm.
But it's definitely, I don't know. I think that the world's going to become a better place in the future from this.
I hope so. I really do. I hope that
Nah, man,
peop-
I'm ready for another planet. Let's go.
yeah, let's do it.
Aliens need to come take me away. I'm tired of this shit. I'm trying, but man, humanity's a little creepy.
Yeah, it can
Mhm.
be. It can be. It's strange. Uh, do you that was a good breakdown on self-defense. I liked it. One thing I did want to ask too is like the whole thing with the gym. Like maybe if you're in the gym and did you freeze up or did I?
No, I'm good.
Okay, okay, good. You're just really still. So if you're in the gym and you want to train like sort of without the other guy knowing, but you're just trying to do it, is there a way to train jujitsu with a self-defense? Like you like Chris Howder says, like think straight, train gym, but think straight. Are there things you'll
Yeah,
do or you'll teach?
yeah. Like so, like when I'm rolling no gi,
Mhm,
I can keep those concepts from me of distance management.
mhm,
So I'm either outside of the strike zone or I'm inside the strike zone.
mhm,
A lot of my no gi grappling is my self-defense, like combative grappling. Like
mhm,
I'm using the same concepts, I'm using the same holds, the same grips.
mhm,
Um, Sometimes I'll play a little bit more space, but that's
mhm,
really it. It's
mhm,
really more or less like you can even like you can do it without telling your partner, but it's also like if you tell your partner like, hey, let's we're not going to throw strikes, but let's see if I can touch your face.
okay.
If I can touch your face, that means I can strike you.
Mhm,
So that there's a way where nobody likes to get their face palmed.
mhm,
So there's a way you can do those kind of things too, where it's like I don't have to be hitting you and we don't have
mhm.
to do that, but it can be realistic and like if I can touch your face, that means I can punch you.
Right.
But a lot of my no-gi stuff, like I'm controlling grips. Most of my game, honestly, is all about grip control.
Mhm,
It's something that I've really focused on over the last year and a
mhm,
half,
mhm,
and I don't know, it's been great for my game because if I'm in there controlling your grips beforehand, I don't have to worry about you doing something to me. So
mhm.
it's real nice. And with self-defense, that's a major thing right there. If I don't have control of your hands, that means you can do things.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's you can easily kind of add those things in.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like if you're because I I I do no gi 3 days a week. I actually like no gi more than gi right now, but that's because I
First time
only
in my life, I feel like I'm doing more no gi than gi.
yeah. Well for the first 7 years all I did was gi because just scheduling issues. I couldn't get to the no gi class, so I'd always do
See,
gi.
I was kind of like raised with jujitsu, like you did no gi during the summer and then winter was
Mm-hmm.
gi.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like how I was brought up with jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing that, like I tend to do more no gi in the summer than the winter. But I don't know, especially since like I cut my dreads off,
Mm-hmm.
no gi has just been more liberating.
I was going to ask you, when did you decide to do that?
I cut them off last February.
Was there a reason behind it, or you just
I've been
needed to
wanting to
change?
redo them for a few years,
Uh-huh.
and I've had that set of dreads for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like ready for a new avatar, new
Mm-hmm.
change.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's been really nice because now it's kind of like incognito. Like,
Yeah.
nobody really recognizes me anymore. So
Right.
it's been kind of fun, not like standing out.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, although that joke you did with your dreads was pretty cool on the video.
Yeah.
What'd you call it? The hippie, that dirty
hip.
hippie shirt, hippie shirt.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the whole nogi thing. Like if somebody's in your closed guard, if you're controlling their hands and their wrists,
He froze up again.
Come on.
You back? There you are.
Yeah, I'm back. There I am. Sorry, all the listeners that you have to go through this
don't worry
over and
about
over again. So, but I was thinking about, like if you're doing no-gi and they're in your closed guard, if you're controlling the wrist, they can't strike you. And that's probably something, but you can also submit. So that's like an important thing to think about for like self-defense or so forth.
Yeah, and it's also like if you're inside my guard, I want to be hugging you, I want to be controlling. So like just whether I'm underneath your arm or over your arm with my hooks. Because if I'm underneath your arm, that means you can still frame up on me, and then the next hand could strike. So being able to control that, being able to, all right, if they're separating, getting the distance so that you can keep a frame and have some kind of distance where you're actively trying to swing and I can still defend. So that's important. That's all distance management.
Yeah.
And it's just like, training a lot with like Henner and Heaton over the years. Of course, they're very big with their Gracie Combative, so their first layer of jiu-jitsu, but even their advanced stuff is great. But that first layer is like, hey, be able to block a punch. And that's the thing is like, I personally think like if your jiu-jitsu can't block a punch, your jiu-jitsu shit. Yeah. It's just reality check.
Yeah.
Like, nothing worse than getting hit in a fight. Now, again, we train for that, like that 1%, but that's what you prepare for. Yeah. So but it's like, like when we roll with gloves, it's nice because I could tell the guys like, all right, we're not trying to knock each other out, but if I tag you, like, yeah, I caught you.
No, that's good. That's good training. I think I would actually be interested in doing stuff like that. That'd be fun. But I do find that I do a lot of that stuff where I'll, break people down, I'll overhook their arms, those kind of things, or control their wrists. So I do try to think about those kind of things because like I said, I like doing jiu-jitsu for me, and for self-defense. And if I ever had to, God forbid. And the interesting thing too, you were talking about constrictions, like just last week, I actually got a submission from a rear naked choke with that person sitting on their butt and me kneeling behind them, as opposed to being in full back control. And I learned that in the police academy years ago. I was like, it does work. It works. It freaking works.
It does. Now, what's the downfall of it? You don't have control of position if they start squirming out.
Yeah, but you can move if there's multiple opponents.
100%. Exactly. And that's where you want to sit there and think like, all right, what is the realistic situation? And that's why, like I said, with doing an arm bar from the mount where you're on your back, like you got to worry about his buddy coming in and kicking. You got to worry about him being able to grab something. You have to worry about them reaching for weapons, going in their pockets. So when you like, those are things you wouldn't necessarily think about. You're like, oh, this is a great technique, I'm going to use it. And all of a sudden it's not working the way you had it and intended it to. Yeah, absolutely. It's all applicable. I think people just get carried, like Chris Howder put it, he's like, we all get sucked into the love of jiu-jitsu and you forget about that concept of self-defense. There's some people who are looking for self-defense and then get kind of sucked into the sport world. And then there's guys who really just, that's not what they were there for either. Like they just want to be there for the hobby and to train here and there. Yeah. Hold on, you froze up. Oh, there you are. Yeah, I get it. It's I don't know. It's people have their various reasons for why they do it, and and exercise and all that. But I mean, just for my aspect of why I do it. I mean, I do it for all those exercise reasons and because it's fun and all that. But I still like martial arts, and I still like the idea of self-defense, and that's the thing that really attracted me to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the first place. It was the Gracie's Combative. I saw that. I saw some of that material, and I was like, oh, that's stuff. It reminded me of it because I remember seeing the first UFC. I saw Royce Gracie do his whole thing, but again, it just wasn't around. So it was like in and out of my head kind of thing. But out of mine. Yeah. But actually I got to meet him
at AKA, which was cool. He just showed up at one of our classes one day and was watching because the Dr. Granddaughter was in the class. And I looked over and I saw this guy with the shaved head. I didn't know who he was. I didn't recognize him at first. Then we're doing class, and then we all stopped. Oh, great, we're gonna take a picture. And like he started walking over closer, and I was like, oh crap, that's Royce Gracie. And I actually, and a friend of mine and we actually got to talk to him for like 30 minutes after class, just the three of us.
He's a cool guy.
He's a really cool guy. Yeah. But that was something else. So between that and meeting Ryan Hall at a seminar recently at my academy, those were like the two like in-person jiu-jitsu personalities that I met the most, that stuck out the most.
Well, see, that's another amazing thing with the jiu-jitsu community is like these are almost like you would say like the celebrities of the jiu-jitsu world. And you have contact with them, like you have access to them. You can easily go take one of their seminars. You can easily go learn from them. Like I had one of my students go down to Ryan's gym on his way to Texas, and he had a chance to go in, drop in, and roll with them. Like, what other sport do you get to do that with?
Right.
Like, you're not going to be able to just go randomly jump on a court with Michael Jordan.
Right.
But yeah, if you go into like one of the Hoilers seminars, you're gonna get a chance to work hands-on with them. It's great, I don't know.
I would do it if I had the opportunity. I would totally do it. I would totally do
it. Yeah. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
And Henry too. Like I have a good friend of mine. It's probably like my best friend, and he is my best friend. But he's a big fan of Henry's, and he's trained with him a lot of seminars and stuff. And he's
Henry's concepts. When you were asking about that earlier, that was probably one of the biggest impacts on my game was training with Henry. His concepts, man.
Yeah,
like his guard passing concept was really a game changer for me. It's like, all right, well, we're not going to go over all these guards.
Right.
One concept that you can try to plug and play to all these guards.
Right.
And it was like, man, all right, that's kind of cool, and again, that resonates when you have the techniques behind it, and then you add the concept in. Now all of a sudden, everything clicks a little bit easier for you.
That's beautiful. That is like, that's the thing. That's like, again, the kind of things that really excite me, or this like getting that one gold nugget that changes everything. That's great. I'm gonna have to try to find an opportunity to train with Henry for sure.
Yeah, he's great to work with.
Yeah. So people can reach you on Instagram at Steve Austin BJJ, and you're also on Facebook as Steve Austin. I found, and just for people, if you want to search the Facebook, I found Steve by putting in Steve Austin BJJ. So
if you don't do that, you get stone cold.
Yeah, that's it. But you know what's funny, and also your website is www.ScionBJJ.com. But you know what's funny is I was going to talk to you about that too, really quick. Is how when you and Ryan had your discussion, you were talking about, depends on the person's on the
age. So you're $6 million man.
Yeah, I am 6 yeah. I mean, in a sense, I'm both, because I know both. But when I first heard it, I was $6 million man. Yeah.
That's what I said. Anybody that's like 40 and above, I'm getting $6 million man, Colonel Steve Austin, Bionic, and it's 40 and below, it's like stone cold.
Yeah.
And I just can't get away from it.
Just embrace it. I
have, it was like when I went out on my own, a couple of people were like, oh, you should do Steve Austin Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm like, no. It was too like a pun on my name. And honestly, it's not my jiu-jitsu. It's none of our jiu-jitsu. Like, we have a little bit of influence on it, but this shit existed before we were there.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I just thought that a little narcissistic to me. Out of me after, but I get it. It's your business. It's the same reason why, like, Robinson's windows,
right.
It's how you recognize that. But for me, it was just I didn't want to use my name as like a gimmick to get in there. But it's constant. Like, I still got friends from like high school that call me Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Mom used to get me one of his shirts for Christmas every year. What's your name?
That's awesome. That's awesome, though. But no, it's
so with the $6 million man. I had one of my surgeries. I had an anesthesiologist, and as he's putting me out, he's putting the mask on. He's like, "Don't worry, we have the technology."
Nice.
And he put me out, and I remember like when I woke up, I was like, back to that bad joke of my name, and I was like, man, like if I would have died in this surgery and that's the last thing I heard was like a bad joke about my name, I would have haunted that guy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But no, but Scion is a really cool name. I mean, the meaning of Utopia, it's awesome. I mean, I think you picked the right choice. I think that was the
Yeah,
right way to go.
plus, like I said, it's got kind of like cool meaning, like the Priory Scion.
Mhm.
It's very similar to Zion meaning with all that biblical stuff. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. I didn't even think about it when I was doing that. I was, like I said, this Utopia, it's peace to me.
It's awesome. It's very cool. It's very cool. Like I said, people can reach you at Steve Austin BJJ on Instagram. You're on Facebook at Steve Austin. Your website is www.scionbjj.com. I want to thank you very much for coming on and speaking to me today. I had a great time talking to you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
And hopefully, if you'd like, I'd like to have you back on and we can get more into the jiu-jitsu discussions too.
Yeah, whenever you want, man. I'll be happy to.
Great. And sorry for all the internet interruptions. I don't know, we had a lot today, but hopefully next time I'll be in a better reception.
Like you said, everybody's trying to find their Sunday on.
They're all doing their social media hits, right? So okay, well, great. Have a great Sunday afternoon, and again, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, take it easy.
You
Bye.
too.